trying to get this going on a very limited budget. And you'll see right there with the piggy bank, that's kind of where a lot of people are at, depending on what part of the country you're in and how your school district's doing. Some schools have more money than others. A big part of us as NCAT is, one of our big charges is to reach non-traditional type students, rural community type students, and underserved populations. We even have our very own diversity and inclusion staff member now, and that's her job, is to reach out to the different populations. We happen to live in a very rural area, so this affects us around here. A lot of our schools have very low budgets for tech. Many of our tech programs have gone away over the years, so that's kind of where my heart, personally, my heart is trying to help these schools like this get tech like this into their schools. I'm going to kind of go through some of this quickly. As far as our grants and sponsorship, fundraising type stuff, I have many links I'm not going to go into. We'll just briefly talk about it. But grant funding, I cannot emphasize that enough. I know it's a pain in the butt, but there are so many grant opportunities out there if you're willing to spend the time and dig in a little bit. Our school personally, and many schools around here I know of, have really benefited from Perkins funding. Okay, so we just last year got awarded $14,000 grant from Perkins. And we, obviously I can't take credit, we actually have a grant writer here on staff, so that helps a lot. I know not all schools are gonna have that, but definitely look into the grant stuff. It's definitely worth the application. Like I said, I have a bunch of resources I'll share with you after the survey. Okay, sponsorship. Okay, this is kind of common sense, gee whiz, you guys already know this type of stuff, but I think one thing I kind of want to harp on a little bit as far as sponsorship is everybody thinks about the local businesses and the industries that are near them. We just so happen to have DigiKey, one of the largest electronics manufacturers in the world, in our backyard. They are hugely awesome in supporting us, our college in particular, our local schools, girls in coding, all that kind of stuff. Very, very giving. So we have that. Not everybody has that. I think an often overlooked resource in every community just about is organizations, nonprofits. Okay, Lions Club, Kiwanis, VFW, American Legions, Eagles, you know, Elks. There's many of those types of organizations out there, and they all have some form of youth programs where they like to give money, they like to donate. You just got to go ask. Okay, a lot of times they're waiting for that. So don't overlook those as sources. We're not talking about huge amounts of money, but it's $500 here, $1,000 there. That can help you get built up real quick to get a basic STEM program going. Fundraising, you, especially in the K through 12 level, probably know much more about this than I do. But I know everything from the cans, going door to door with the candy bars to car washes, you name it. There's always some type of fundraising activity you can do. Okay, STEM drones and future skill building. All the good news about all these things we're talking about here, to me, these are the three main skill sets that you're gonna pull out of these STEM drones. But the great thing is you don't have to have a drone to pull these skill sets out. Okay, drones are just the attractor. Okay, right now, many of you have probably heard of Vex Robotics. It's a fairly popular program throughout the country. What I've noticed though is it tends to attract just a certain amount of kids. Okay, so there's all these kids nationwide, but if you look at a school of like 400 kids, there maybe only 5 kids out of that whole school that are actually doing this. Okay, so it tends to be not get widespread. That's why I feel like coding needs to start getting spread out to more kids, and a great way to do that is with drones. Maybe most kids aren't attracted to the little robots rolling around on the floor, but who doesn't love a drone? Especially when they can program it and hit the button and watch it do what they just told it to do. Okay, so to me, a drone is a great attractor. These two little guys we talked about are fairly cheap. I won't go into a lot of these sites, but under design and engineering, okay, so now we're getting into things like CAD software. That's a huge skill going forward. Okay. Even in aircraft maintenance, we're starting to see, we happen to have a aircraft manufacturer over here in Duluth, Minnesota called Cirrus Aircraft. they're actually starting to look for people that have CAD backgrounds to go into their R&D department. So we teach the traditional A&P mechanic here, but they also want to see people with that CAD skill, because CAD is starting to touch everything, additive manufacturing, whatever you want to call it. 3D printing is the real deal. I mean, they're even talking about 3D printing food now, which is kind of scary, but they 3D print houses. I mean,
Looks like manufacturers are talking about allowing the 3D printing of replacement parts.
right, depending on what type of part, there's definitely, I mean, and this all comes down to computer-aided design. And the awesome thing about this, whether you have a drone or not, this top link here, Tinkercad, this is free for any person anywhere to use. It's a very basic level CAD software where you take a shape and it'll let you manipulate it. It will even let you go out to, if you look at that bottom link, Thingiverse, that's one of your more popular places to go to find objects that people have already built. In fact, if you go into Thingiverse and do a search on Mambo or Tello, you'll find a bunch of parts that people have already built into the out of CAD software. So you can import them and print them out if you have a 3D printer. But the great news about these programs is you don't have to have drones. You can just implement this in your classroom. You can get your kids learning these CAD skills. Tinkercad is a great place to start. It's very user-friendly. They have great instructional videos to go along to get you started. And so to me, I see no reason why elementary kids cannot be playing with Tinkercad, even into middle school. Great thing about Tinkercad is it's the kind of the beginning level of Autodesk, that second link there. Autodesk is one of the premier CAD design softwares there is. Okay. In addition to a multiple suite of other applications like advanced electronic printed circuit board design. Okay, so they have a whole host of software freely available for educators and students. Okay, to give you an example, Autodesk CAD will, if you have a student with a student email account, they will let you register and give you a free 3-year account into AutoCAD. And now you're talking, so if I'm up in high school, or we even use it here at our 2-year school in our electronics program, they have free access to this program the whole time, and they're here for their whole 2-year program. And I mean, you can do high-level stuff with this program. Okay, develop your CAD skills. It's free. You can't beat it, and it goes hand in hand with these drones, because that's a big part of competitions and where we're heading with our competitions is the design engineering aspect. A little bit about electronics. Electronics is kind of fading somewhat now. Traditional electronics I'm talking about. There's still a lot of great things out there, good reasons to learn basic electronics. There's a ton of free resources on electronics. The Socratic will give you lessons on everything from DC circuits all the way up into computer networking. So awesome resource, it's all free. Spark Fun, same thing, many great traditional electronic lessons. And this top link, Circuit Lab, okay, obviously most schools can't afford to go out and buy all the cool test equipment like oscopes and multimeters. They have many, this is just one of many, they have many free online circuit labs where you can actually build circuits online, hook up computerized test equipment to the circuits, see how they work, see if they're working right, take measurements, all that cool stuff. So definitely electronics is a big area you can, for free, and again, you don't even need to have a drone to implement this into your tech side of your classroom. And then coding, okay, so I just highlighted 2 of the free apps here. The EDU Workbench, that works for the Mambo, and that's a free coding app, block coding. And the Scratch, that works with the Tello, that's a free block coding app also. Okay, so that's, you can get into and it's not just for drones. In fact, I'll go into Workbench real quick to show you what I'm talking about. And Scratch has a lot more available as far as I know. I don't know a lot about either of these. I've played with Workbench the most, but you basically develop a free account. And I know K through 12, a lot of teachers are probably already into the Google environment as far as Google Classroom and all the resources that they have for you. But what I like about this is I can go in here and I can make my own course. Oh, wrong place. under my profile, I can develop my own courses. Like right now, if we actually had an educator workshop, I already have a course set up for 10 people to be in here, and I have lessons already loaded in there and it's geared towards the Parrot Mambo, because that's the fleet I have. But you can go in here, you can create assignments. Basically for each student, I gave 3 videos that they have to watch and exercises they have to do with their Mambo. Basically how to learn how to use their Mambo. And it's all about coding. And as far as the workbench environment, I like it. It's fairly intuitive and easy to use. Oh, wrong one. So I go here, new Blockly program, okay, add device. Okay, so these are, and not just for drones, it has many different coding projects and things you can play with, but you'll notice the Parrot Mini drone is one of the things you can pick. So I would pick that. I already had one connected earlier. If I had my drone, I would power it on at this point, connect with it. So instead of my cell phone or my controller, I would be using my laptop to connect with the drone. And once we're connected, which we're not going to be, it would give me access to the drone commands. And you can see there's not a whole lot there, but if I look at events, different block coding commands and getting used to how those work together. So actions, obviously one of the first things I'm going to do, and then it's drag and drop. That's what I like the most. So I pick the takeoff. I could say it took off, I could fly, and notice how they all fit together, so it won't let you mess up. If they don't fit together, it's not going to work, obviously. So they all have to link. So even a person like me, who's not a coder, I've blinked a few lights with Arduino, that's about it. So I know how to blink an LED, but block coding, I can do that all day. And what I love about this is it's problem solving. Very easy to create scenarios like, hey, we're going to start from point A, we're going to fly a pattern B, C, D, E, make any pattern a figure 8, whatever. They have to code that. Okay, so that's a problem you could give them. Or you could give them a problem like how far will the drone go at what percent of power, power versus distance. You can have them figure this all out. You can set up an obstacle course. You can have them fly it manually, and then you could have them program, see which one's faster. Who would win, the programmed drone or the pilot? So there's a challenge right there. And obviously you can get more complex as you go with this, the more you learn. But it gives you, like, I can have this fly forward. It gives me a lot of drop downs for directions and stuff. How many seconds versus power. So there's a lot of math calculations and trial and error they would have to do. So that's what I love about all this. It really stirs the problem solving process. Works well with the group of 2 or 3, because 2 heads, 3 heads are better than 1, so that they're conversing. And it can be done on your cell phone. I don't recommend it because that's too small for me. So a laptop or a Chromebook, something like that. So if I had a basic setup in the classroom, I would want some type of Chromebook, the drone, and the flight sim on the Chromebook. That's kind of a real quick overview of the coding aspect. That's just the block coding. Both of the Tello EDU, not the Tello base model, but the EDU and the Mambo can both go all the way up into Python and some really advanced coding. That gets into areas beyond my expertise by far. But there are probably some high school kids that could be starting to get into that, and definitely university level. Our guys here are obviously using Arduino mostly, but they do dabble in Python. And I'm starting to give them my drones to play with so they can see what can be done. But to me, there's really, especially with the Tello, no limit. I've heard of some crazy stuff that they're doing. They're taking a Tello and having it track like a whole basketball team at the same time. Swarming, obviously, that's what's cool about the Tello. You can swarm up to 5 of these. You could develop a choreographed routine between them. I mean, just the crazy stuff you can do with these things. Budgeting. So if I broke this down real quick as a basic budget, getting in at the very ground floor, I think we've already talked, each drone can support 3 kids, and I like to define the roles. So to me, it's always like a pilot type person, an engineer, or a maintenance person, and a safety slash or a spotter type person. Okay. And the key to that obviously is not to have the pilot be the only pilot. You got to rotate this because, you know, every kid wants to fly the drone. Every kid wants to code and push the buttons. Nobody really wants to be the spotter, but safety, you do have to have that person. So keep it. It's a good way to have one drone or one complete setup be quickly used for 3 kids. And so if I have a class of, I don't know, 15 kids, 5 drones, I've got a whole curriculum I can build off of that. Okay, and you can see we already talked about between 100 and 180 for each drone setup. Okay, it's going to be a little more if you start adding in the controller pieces and the FPV goggles and all that kind of stuff. Don't have to have that stuff. Just nice to have, especially when you get into the competition area, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Flight sims, those can be free all the way up to $200 or even more, depending on the level you want to do with that. So very, very affordable. Coding, like we said, free. Okay, each of these drones has a pay version. The advantage of the pay version is they work a little better. Like with the Tello, Drone Blocks is a really good app for coding, the Tello block coding, because it's meant for it. It's easier to use than Scratches. Workbench, I think, works really great. So I have not played with any of the pay versions of coding. So Tinker is the one that they would use that costs money. We already talked about the CAD software. That's all free, okay, especially for schools. So even if you don't have drones at all, you can have CAD and you can have coding. 3D printing, I know this is probably a huge area where some schools have it, some schools don't. This can get really expensive quick. Okay, these things are coming down more and more. In fact, we've had a lot of students come through our class here. I mean, we're talking like high school and middle school kids that have their own personal 3D printers now because they're that into it. They make some of these up for less than $200. Obviously, you're going to get what you pay for, but unfortunately, these printers can go all the way up into the many thousands, depending on what level. Okay. So even if your school only has one, I mean, that's better than nothing. Just take really good care of it. One of the big things people don't think about is the cost of upkeeping these 3D printers, your materials. Those add up, definitely. You'd have to have a budget to keep, especially when you start printing a lot of stuff. You're going to go through that material quick. Another aspect is if you don't have access to 3D printing, is there a community college close to you? Is there a deal? I know in Minnesota, we're pretty good about having shared resources here. We have STEM trailers. I know we do have one STEM trailer that's all about 3D printing and laser cutting and all that stuff. I know of at least one. Everything's been quiet on that front for a while, obviously since last spring because of the current situation, but once we get back around, I know that STEM trailer goes around here and there. We've seen it up here before, so.
I have even heard of some public libraries allowing you to come and 3D print for the cost of plastic or whatever, like they did with copiers and stuff back in the day.
Right. And the absolute worst case is you can design a 3D product, and there are now companies that will actually, you can send it off, they'll print it for you and send it back. I think that's still fairly expensive. So far, I haven't really looked too hard into that because we actually have some 3D printers here, so we do most of our own printing, but definitely that's an awesome technology. And curriculum. Throughout the day, we've showed you a couple good places to go for free lessons. There's many more. I'll include those in our links. A lot of free stuff out there. One of the few advantages of our current situation is that a lot of companies, you probably noticed this, I mean, big companies like Lockheed, Drone Racing League, some of these big players are starting to provide a lot of virtual stuff for teachers and stuff because they're wanting to help out, and that's a good thing. Even FTW Robotics is trying to provide some free online curriculum. So.
Absolutely, and then of course, shameless plug for NCAT, although we are a fairly new organization, the National Center for Autonomous Technologies, one of the things they are doing is acting as a resource hub. So as we hold these trainings and things like that, this information is going to get posted out to that website, and it's ncattech.org, and we will have that, in fact, there it is right there, ncatech.org. It is still in the design phase.
Very much.
We will be rolling out our newest website and start posting posting curriculum and other information there, presentations, videos of the things that we're doing and of the workshops like we're doing here. So you can see we already have some of that up there, but definitely expect it to grow, and we will happily share anything you're willing to share as well. Again, as I said earlier, the other educators here, we're our best resource, and anytime we collaborate and make things happen, since there is no real competition between us, that it makes it all better. It makes it all more resources, more access, more ideas. So us and the students all win. So.
And what's in it for us as far as drone tech? I'll tell you, our big push for drone tech is the kids, because I mean, obviously right now we run the nation's only large-scale unmanned systems program in the country, still to this day. We're talking the large ones, military size, industrial size. 2-year program. We want these kids to get turned on by drones, okay? Those are our future students, okay? So that's why we're so focused on this. And that doesn't matter if they're here in Minnesota, Alabama, California, wherever. We've had students as far away from Alaska come to our program. So we want that to continue. So that's why we're so passionate about getting this technology and any help we can give to our educators when it comes to this stuff. But like Zach said, here's our resource. Not a whole bunch there yet, but you can see our last workshop we did back in June is already on there. Okay, it must have had to be broken down into various sections here because of the file size, but some good basic resources so far. John, I don't think mentioned it this morning, but one of our big things, going back to the funding stuff, one of our big things we want to do as NCAT is to establish clear pathways and easy to go places to get this funding, you know, how-tos. Okay, that's one of our big things we want to work with through NCAT is having grants spots where people can go apply for grants, ideas on how to get funded. That's one of our big things you're gonna see as we go forward. But like Zach said, this site has really only just come online in about the last 6 months, so very new still. Okay, so back to, and that's kind of the quick spiel on STEM program on a budget. I know we could spend days on this whole subject, we really could. We didn't see a lot of them, but I have a ton of resources coming your way under that category. So places to look. It's definitely a rabbit hole, you can get lost in it. So I kind of picked some good ones I liked, and we'll definitely give them to you.
So I got, is there an alternative for Workbench to code Mambos, because Tinker only supports iPad?
That I'm not sure. I've never used any of the pay stuff.
Okay.
I think there are other ones. I'm not positive on that though. To be honest, I've only used Workbench. Like I said, I am not a coder at all.
Gotcha.
And I always go for the free stuff myself.
And James asked about 3D printer recommendations, but it looks like the rest of our guests here are piping in with what they love, and so that's what I love to see. Teachers helping teachers, so.
Yeah, and that's what this is all about. I can tell you from our point of view, we like Affinia. We have 3 of them. We like those. I know they're not probably the best there is, but they're fairly reasonable price. They were highly recommended to us by our people within the state here, so we went with Affinia. A lot of it, 3D printing to me comes down to how you're going to use it. Is it going to be used for mass printing production type, or is it going to be used for print this object here, print this object there? That makes a difference too.
Yeah, I just don't get maybe as much heavy uses as
Right.
you would find in some of the CTE classes within a high school or middle school, so yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely no expert on it, but I like using them, that's for sure. I got my baby Yoda.
So it looks like the Workbench is going to be deprecated, so that's why he was asking about the Workbench solution. And
I've heard about that. I'm gonna get with the FTW guys, because I've heard somebody was telling me that that's going away, but I don't know for sure on that.
And maybe that's an idea for you, Hassan, is to go to the FTW robotics website and hit contact us. They have a contact us section and ask them what they recommend or what they're going to be moving to. Since those are the folks that are now owning that that Mambo, they might be the best one to give you a recommendation.
Definitely, and they're very responsive. They'll drop them an email or a phone call. They're very responsive.
And I gotta say, one of the guys in charge, his name is Zach, so he's got that.
Yeah, yeah. Great guys.
That's it as far as questions on that one. Let's go ahead and keep them rolling.
Perfect timing, right
Right on 3 o'clock here.
Right back on
It looks
schedule.
like we're back on